Hey, Professor Johnson, this is Ashley Allen. Today's June 8th, 2018, week 5, yay! This is lab part 2 on the axial and appendicular skeleton. We're going to start with the axial skeleton, and we're going to start here with the anterior skull. Here's my assistant Bones, and we'll start from the top here. So for the anterior skull, we'll start with the frontal lobe. It comes down here into the orbit. It forms the top part of the orbit bone. If you go inside the back of the skull, but inside the orbit is the sphenoid bone, and the sphenoid bone is next to the ethmoid bone as well as the lacrimal bone, and they're both here more in the medial portion or towards the inside of the, I guess, the nose or the nasal cavity down here. Then this is the nasal bone, and then right here is the vomer bone and the maxilla and the mandible. And then we'll go to the posterior skull, which is the back. And we have the occipital bone, which is connected to the parietal bone, the temporal bone, and then again the mandible, which is the jaw. So we'll go to the lateral view here of bones, and again we'll start with the parts of the head. There's the parietal, occipital, temporal, frontal, and like I pointed out before, inside of the socket there's the ethmoid and the lacrimal, and then there's the nasal bone, the zygomatic bone, which is our cheekbone, and that's part of the anterior part of the skull as well, and it forms the side of our orbit, and then the mandible again. So kindly, Bones allowed me to color the inside of his skull to show you the inferior part of the skull. So I made it easier by coloring. The purple portion is the frontal lobe, and then the blue and the pink are actually, the blue is the ethmoid bone and the pink is the sphenoid bone, and those bones I showed you both that are in, they're both inside the orbit, but it shows you how they run up through the skull and form part of the skull as well. And then the orange is the temporal lobe, and the green is the parietal bone and lobe, and the white right there is the occipital, which of course starts forming down this direction. We're going to do list the vertebral column here, so let me get Bones again, show you his vertebral column. So up top here is C1, also known as the atlas. C2 is the axis, and then there is the cervical vertebrae, which is C1 down through C7. Then we have the thoracic vertebrae, which is T1 all the way down to T12, and then there's the lumbar, which is L1 down to L5, the sacrum, and the coccyx. And that leads us to the appendicular skeleton. So we'll start with the pectoral girdle, which is the scapula, which hooks onto the clavicle. It helps form the ball and socket joint for the humerus. Then we have the ulna here, and then the radius, which is on the same part of our thumb right there. Then we're going to go into the hand, and the hand gets a little more complex. I've darkened it in for you so you can see, see some of the bones, the hand and the wrist. So this is the thumb portion. And here's the pinky. So we'll go through these bones. So starting at the thumb over here is the trapezium, and below the trapezium down here is the scaphoid. Then we'll go over, and it is the lunate, and then we'll go to the tricatrum, and then the pisiform, and the hamate, then the capitate, and the trapezoid. And then these are the metatarsals, and then down here are the phalanges. All right, and then we'll go into the pelvic girdle. Dun-ta-da-la. Pelvic girdle, this is the ilium. This is the pelvic bone, and this is the ischium right here. Then there's the femur, the largest bone in our body, right here. The patella, like our kneecap. The tibia, right here. Then the fibula. And then we're gonna go into our ankle here, which gets a little more complex, just like the wrist. For being such a small part of our body, they have so many intricate bones here. So again, we'll start this way. This time we have phalanges, then metatarsals. Then this heel is our calcaneus, okay? And then next to the calcaneus is the cuboid. And if you work yourself over, there's the lateral cuneiform, and then the medial cuneiform. Too bad I can't show you very well on here because he's flipping around. Work with me, bones. The medial cuneiform and then the intermedial cuneiform is actually in between the medial cuneiform and the lateral cuneiform. Then above them is the navicular bone and the talus up here into the ankle. And so that is the axial and the appendicular skeleton.